From the William B. Travis Building in Austin, Texas, we're keeping Texas energy on track. Here's your host, Bryce Doobie.
Welcome to Texas Energy on Track, the official podcast of the Railroad Commission of Texas. I am your host, Bryce Doobie, joined as always by our producer slash co-host, Nick Cranach. Nick, how are you doing?
I wish I could say I was doing better. You know, it's cold and flu season, so here I am sounding all nasally. But aside from that, you know, it's always exciting to be back on the podcast and happy to be involved. Always exciting and fun.
And we kind of bounce around from different topics with industry and things like that, and then we kind of go a little bit behind the curtain with the RRC itself. So that's why this week it is really exciting to be joined by Jessica Chamberlain. She is the Human Resources Director for the Railroad Commission. Jessica, how are you doing?
Hi, guys. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. We're going to kind of talk some broader things on the Railroad Commission as far as from your perspective on the HR side of things and all of that. But I mean, let's just get with some of the basics first of all. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been with the RRC? What's your background? All of that.
Yeah, I've been with the Railroad Commission a little over a year. I got here in August 2024. Learned a lot about how we operate and the just really fascinating work that we do. I have 25 years of state experience. 20 of that was in state higher education.
And in HR that entire time, or?
20 years in HR, 5 years doing some other stuff, early career that, you know, just like all of us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So here with HR, talking about the department itself, can you describe just sort of its overall role? And like, I mean, we kind of all know HR as far as what they do from a certain perspective, but like, how does it support the agency?
Yeah, so it's in the name, Human Resources. We're all about people. I feel like my group and what we do, we have the privilege of getting to work with all of our employees and all of our managers on a daily basis. You know, my opinion, and it's just been the focus of my profession these past 20 years, is that employees are an organization's greatest assets. And that's remains true here at the Railroad Commission. Our employees position us for success, and they allow us to serve the state. That's what we're here for. My division, the HR division, is the agency's partner for all things that have to do with people. We help attract talent to the agency. We cultivate them once they're here. We provide support that they need to get their jobs done, to live their lives sometimes, and we help retain them. Our goal is, like, once we hire somebody, it's to get them all the way through to retirement. Another big part of our job is to help foster a positive workplace culture, to support employee development, support well-being wherever we can, and to support engagement, have a engaged and productive workforce.
Yeah, I mean, just shameless plug on that experience if you need some feedback. I mean, we talked on the show before. I joined the agency earlier this year in February, and the onboarding process, I started remotely because I was still in DC at the time, and it was as seamless as any organization I've ever come in. Y'all were amazing. I mean, it was able to get me on board, get me set up with all the paperwork, and I had a laptop and was up and running, kind of working remote for like a week before I was able to get like on the ground here in Austin. And I was like, oh, I had a password issue. Oh, okay, we'll just text this person. They'll get it solved in the next 10 minutes. And it was a great organization to kind of be welcomed into, starting with all of that, because I know there are so many different folks that kind of come from not just different backgrounds, but I mean, it's a state agency, so you guys are supporting employees all across Texas.
Absolutely. We've got a large population here in downtown Austin, but we've got employees all over the state that we interact with daily, and our job is to solve problems. A manager brings us a problem, our job is to help them fix it. Employee brings us a problem, our job is to help fix it so that people can, get their needs met and get back to work.
So kind of speaking on that, you kind of said there from recruitment to retirement. Let's begin at the beginning with all of that. I mean, I think one thing that is unique with the Railroad Commission is our workforce is very diverse as far as backgrounds and educations. And I mean, we've had folks on here. We have scientists and geologists. We have administrative assistants. We've got media relations. We've got all sorts of lawyers. How do we recruit for the RRC? What does that sort of look like as far as that recruitment process? Yeah,
so, the nuts and bolts of it, all of our jobs are publicly posted. That's a state requirement. So all of our jobs are posted on our agency job board for competitive recruitment. The level of position that we're recruiting for depends on what the business needs are, factoring available budget, that sort of thing. And once we understand what type of job we're looking for, that kind of informs where we're looking for people. So we post jobs on the job board, but behind the scenes, our talent acquisition team, our recruiters, are looking looking at different places to source applicants, and they're partnering with our hiring managers to figure out what the best place is. So like you said, that we have a variety of jobs. We have IT professionals, we have programmers, we have attorneys, we have people who work out in the field who have, strong technical expertise in oil and gas operations. We have scientists. And then we have office, operations staff like HR, finance, procurement, that sort of thing. Where you find people is different for all of those jobs. And the level of position helps inform that too. So, entry-level positions, those experience requirements might look a little lighter. We might be looking for people who are finishing their education and ready to, trying to join the workforce. People who, in maybe a more senior level position who has to have that experience coming in the door. We might be, looking at more, professionally focused professional organizations or job boards. For example, we post a lot of jobs on the Texas Bar Career Center when we're looking for legal professionals to come in, because a lot of people go to those professional organizations in order to find career opportunities. It's not uncommon also for us to see people join the agency as a second career. Maybe they've worked in industry for a long time. Maybe they're ready to close that chapter of their career and do something different. They'll come over and join a state agency and do very similar work to what they did in industry, but do that for the state and get different benefits from it.
So, when we're looking at hiring folks, what are some of the key qualities or skills that HR is looking for? It's broad. Like what makes a good RRC candidate?
So a lot of it depends on the position. There's always what I would refer to as functional or technical qualifications that are unique to a job. What makes you qualified for your job is very different than what makes me qualified for mine, because we have different professions. There are some underlying things. The Railroad Commission has a really big job to do, and it has a really high impact on the way the state functions. Almost like soft skills. What I would say is that we're looking for people who can be committed to our mission, who can get behind what we do. That's important for any public service job, is really being on board with the mission and being supportive of it and committed to success. We have some core values that I think are important to qualities to look for in a candidate. People who are, results driven. People who are committed to customer service, and people who are collaborative and want to work as part of a team. At the Railroad Commission, we like to say that we're one agency, one team. And I think that in our hiring, we do look for in people who kind of embody those qualifications, because it'll help lead to success later on once they're here.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and we've talked about some of that before on the show. But it is interesting, and I've been surprised during my time here, just the amount of, I'll be at my desk, and you'll just get a phone call from someone like, hey, I've got a question about oil and gas. And I'm like, well, I'm not the one to help you, but I need to be able to find, I know who to connect you to type things, being able to make those connections. The soft skill piece, I think, is really invaluable, at least so far in my experience here as well.
Here's a question that sort of I have a background or a connection to. So I came from not in the industry. So I used to work in TV, but I'm doing communications, we're podcasting here too. So if there's somebody that there's a job that maybe somebody isn't connected with in the oil and gas industry, they're coming from a different industry, but there's something maybe they have a skill for, what advice would you give to them, coming to a state job, whereas maybe they were working in a private or, a different company or different line of work?
In terms of transition, I would say, and this would be true for any job change, not necessarily from industry to private sector. But, I think anytime you change jobs, you've got to give yourself time to acclimate to your new organization. That might be changing companies if you're continuing to work in the private sector. That might be transitioning from private sector to public sector. That might be transitioning from higher ed to state government. It's true for all job transitions. Give yourself time. Be patient. Learn the ropes for where you're at. Acclimate to the different culture and figure out what you need to do to support the organization's goals, to support the goals of your position, and ultimately be a successful member of the team.
And I think that for me, for example, there's a lot I had to learn about working for the state, because it was a complete 180. There's a lot of stuff that's public. There's a lot of stuff that you just hit the ground running. You figure it out on the job. I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I work for a state agency now. Oh, so there's this and this and this. So it can be a bit of a shock. So yeah, I think that's some great advice for people that are coming, from a different industry.
I mean, I agree. You know, coming from a private sector environment to a public sector environment, one of the things you'll notice automatically is that we have a lot of rules we have to follow. There's a lot of laws that drive what we do, a lot of policies and procedures we have to follow, and those checks and balances are there for a reason. If you're not used to it, it can be a little shocking, but you know, when you put some thought into it and give it some time, all of that stuff is there for a reason. We have those checks and balances to make sure that we're operating effectively and we're using resources prudently. It's just if you're not used to it, it can be a little surprising.
It is always, I dabbled a little bit in the private sector briefly in my career and then came back to government. I've been in public service most of my career, but it's always, you get out there, you're like, oh, wow, there's different worlds. And I guess kind of talking in that acclimation process. I mean, so someone's here, they've been working. There's now going to, I mean, there are training and opportunities for professional development and things like that. I've already done midstream training since I've been here, which was coming from knowing nothing about oil and gas. That was jumping into the deep end, and it was fascinating, but it's a lot of information. But again, like really worth doing because it's like, oh, okay, now I'm understanding some of the stuff that's landing in front of me here, and it really gave me a better understanding of really what we do as an agency. What are some of the other like opportunities and things that folks have? I know I've seen some different things come through emails and stuff like that, but what are opportunities for ROC staff?
I love talking about this. Training and development is a big priority for our agency, and I think that on the whole, we work really hard to foster a culture of continuous learning and growth. All employees who work for the Railroad Commission are encouraged to participate in professional development and to become distinctly successful in what their career pathway is, whatever it is. And we have a team here, our training and professional development group, that works very hard to try to cultivate learning pathways for different employees in different professions. So we have learning pathways for people in IT professions, for people who are in maybe administrative or operations focused jobs. We have learning paths for our more technically focused folks that are out in the field, like our field inspectors, and of course management and leadership. We've got lots of pathways for people who either are managing or who aspire to manage down the line. And some of those programs are very carefully curated. Our training and development team works sometimes on building customized courses. And then some of our programs are multi-year training and development programs, specifically like our management and leadership programs. But we encourage everybody to participate in training and development. We encourage managers to make that part of somebody's plan for the year. All right, annual performance or annual growth plans, which we're working on now, as you guys probably know. But yeah, like learning and development's a big part of that because it supports your existing employees to grow within the organization and, you know, take on more challenging roles or just be stronger at the role that they have. And all of that just helps us operate better and serve the state to the best of our ability.
Yeah, I mean, I think another thing too, you would probably agree on it's a good retention tool.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Investing in your employees actually keeps them. It doesn't send them away.
And speaking of which, as we kind of laugh here, I mean, I know one of the other things that you guys do a lot of is really that positive work culture and things like that, and trying to, especially since there's been return to office and a lot of changes and all those things over the years, and building out not just that communication, but really making sure that we have a good work culture. And it's, again, as a relative newcomer, it is a noticeable thing to see. What is HR's role in all of that? Because you guys aren't just hey, let's just plan potlucks and things. There's a lot more that goes into all of these things. Yeah.
So you touched on it very early in our conversation. One of the things that we spend a lot of time and energy on is onboarding. And it makes my heart happy to hear that you had a positive onboarding experience when you got here, because that's intentional. That's the plan. We want people to feel welcomed when they walk in our doors. We want them to feel supported. We want them to feel like they are set up for success in learning their new jobs, because transitioning jobs can be hard. I mean, you've got the cultural challenges, Nick, that you mentioned earlier. You've got like trying to figure out what all the rules are, who the people are, what is my job, how do I do my job? Like there's so much information coming at you. That's not even the part about, having to figure out what your insurance benefits are or where you park or your new commute route. So we want to make sure that we're here as a positive group to help welcome people and help start their acclimation. And onboarding doesn't just happen on day one when you show up for new employee orientation. Onboarding is months. That's why we have that new employee orientation experience that everybody sees when they walk in our doors. Usually within the first 60, 90 days that you're here, we also have another program we invite all new or recently hired employees to, where they get to hear every division director in our agency talk about what their organization does, because that helps provide a more holistic view of what the agency does and what different divisions do and how we all interact with one another to create one large team. So we have that, and that is a big part of our efforts to try to support success and engagement. Like I mentioned before, we do support continuous learning and growth, so those training and development programs are really helpful to try to support engagement and positive culture. We have awards programs that recognize different service milestones. We have award programs that recognize outstanding performance. We have wellness programs to support both physical and mental well-being. Throughout the year, the HR team and other groups in the agency we try to sponsor events throughout the year to support engagement and try to build community. Some of those events are going on today. And sometimes our events actually tie into charitable giving campaigns. That's something that I was not expecting when I got here 14 months ago, and it's something that I have found it to be a very rewarding experience, that our community of employees are so generous in giving back to other organizations and other populations that are in need.
That's definitely been a neat thing to see. I know, coming off of like the floods over the summer and things like that, and some emails went out, some things happened, and all of a sudden it was like there was just an outpouring from everybody, and it really is kind of a powerful thing.
It was just astonishing. It was one of the most, I guess, personally rewarding things that I've had the opportunity to work on since I've been here.
I think that's one of those things that kind of ties into, with public service, and like I said, we've been public servants for a while and things in different spaces and all of that. But there are really a lot of, for folks who maybe are coming from the outside, they may hear certain things about public service. We know there's a pay differential and things like that if you're private sector or public sector, things like that. But there's a lot of really rewarding aspects to government service, also working with the RRC. What are some of those that you've seen?
Pay is sometimes a challenge for folks depending on your profession. I think that for some professions, our pay is pretty competitive and in line with what market is. For other professions, it's not. There's a flip side to that. People who work in public service often work in public service because they want to serve. They want to be part of this and they want to give back. So, alignment with mission, like we talked about earlier, is important. And it's something that I think a lot of people who come to public service have almost like a calling. That's a great way of phrasing it. And then there are other things that offset that. So we've got a great benefits package that is pretty low out-of-pocket cost. Retirement programs are a major attraction to public service. We do have great work-life balance here. I can say that from personal experience. My work-life balance here is much better than it's been anywhere else in my career. Career advancement opportunities. I think the state provides very well-defined career ladders for almost all professions that we have. So there's always you start at one spot and you know how to climb and what your career growth could look like and what your earning potential can look like based on those career ladders. We have alternate work schedules, telework for eligible positions. For me also, I think the work that we do is just interesting and every time I hear somebody talk about the work that they do with the commission, and you and I were talking separately before this visit about some earlier episodes, and I feel like listening to some of my colleagues talk about the work they do is it's fascinating.
Can you talk a little bit about, so we're talking about benefits of the job. Obviously we work here, you're hiring people. You're not just sitting back and waiting, on people to apply for jobs. You have people that are getting out there, they're recruiting, they're going to events, they're going all over the state. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have a talent acquisition team. Their job is to try to bring talent into the agency, and they have tools with which they do this. Some of it is thinking about how to advertise jobs or how to get in front of prospective applicants. So our talent acquisition team does get out on the road quite a bit throughout the year. They go to different career events. Sometimes they're getting out on the road with our public affairs team to go visit or to participate in different community events around the state. And while they're doing that, they're forming connections with people that are either currently interested in joining the Railroad Commission or might have that potential later on in the future. So when they go out to these events and to connect with people, they're talking to people about their work backgrounds and what their career aspirations are. They're exchanging information. They're making connections on LinkedIn or, that sort of thing. And when we have a hiring need, those talent acquisition folks, they dip into those connections that they make to try to find prospects for our hiring managers. So, there's all kinds of ways that we're making that. So career events is one. So career events, sometimes we're attending, veterans-focused career events. Sometimes they are career events at universities for people who are wrapping up their education and are ready to join the workforce, looking for that first postgraduate job. We partner with a lot of universities and their career offices to try to create those pipelines. We have an internship program that also creates pipelines. So all of those things help us forge connections to the community so that, we can bring talent into the agency.
As we're kind of wrapping things up here, just sort of a curveball question. What's your favorite part about the job? Or you've been doing this for 20 years now. You said you like just working in HR and all of that. What is your favorite part about this field, this job? What brings you to work?
I think the thing that I find most rewarding about the type of work I do, this profession I'm in, is watching organizations succeed. That might be individuals succeed, grow from being maybe an individual contributor to a leader. That's watching an organization meet its objectives. Maybe that's watching the organization do something better today than it did yesterday. And that includes my team. People who have worked with me for any measure of time probably knows that I'm never satisfied. I always want to do better. I always want to do more. But that's how organizations work too. You're always trying to be better. And I like watching because I get to interact with everybody. I get to interact with all groups in the agency and, all managers. And I get to kind of watch and observe, see these little nuggets of, watching a podcast get created and watching it flourish. Like that's rewarding for me personally, is watching new people come into an organization and do something new and different that helps us be successful. And I can take this show as a perfect example of that. But I get a lot of personal gratification out of that. And it's what keeps me going as an HR professional.
Thank you once again. These are all fun, but this has been exceptionally enjoyable just to talk about all of this. It's a different side of things. We'll get back to some science stuff for some of the folks who listen to some of that maybe next week. This is the human sciences, I guess, as it were, on all of these things and sort of how the commission itself works.
And I appreciate you plugging the podcast, talking about watching the podcast grow, because that will remind people, make sure they subscribe on your favorite podcast app. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, wherever we are out there. So we make it easy for you, because when you subscribe, you get the notification. We're doing more episodes now, so you'll know. You wake up in the morning, you look at your phone, you have a notification. Hey, we have another episode. So that really helps out to subscribe, tell your friends, even tell your enemies, because they may like what we're talking about as well. So you can find that on all the major podcast apps. We also have some other content, extra content on social media. That's on X is TXRRC, Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, Railroad Commission of Texas, or go to rrc.texas.gov. We make it easy for you to get all the content. So not just podcast stuff, but on social media, we do post a lot of content, a lot of helpful informational content. So be sure to check that out.
And as we noted earlier, also if you're looking for career opportunities with the Railroad Commission of Texas. So I guess that wraps it up for this episode. Again, as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all soon.